Frank, this is episode, what is it, 281? Something like that. It's not technically 280 for a lightning topic round, but it was .NET Conf last week and .NET 6 and all things VS 2022. We couldn't do it. I felt like we had to do that episode at that time, right?
Plus, it's really, really classic for us to be off by one on these lightning topic episodes. I think we've made like this mea culpa like 3 times in the history of the show. So I do not feel bad at all being at episode whatever 281 for a lightning talk. This is a lightning talk. I'm excited because I totally forgot until you started rattling off a bunch of topics. I was like, oh, geez, it's one of those. So I'm excited.
I'm a big fan because if you're a new listener to the podcast, because you saw our podcast highlighted at .NET Conf, one, we appreciate you being here. We are here every single Monday talking about awesome things in tech, and specifically every 10th episode, usually on the 0, we like to do lightning topics. These are things that you've asked us to talk about, but we've been too lazy to do a full episode on. So we do 5 minutes, 6 topic total, 30 minutes, breaking it down. Number one, Frank, app sales. Now, technically not app sales, but in-app upgrade, update sales for everybody. Because about how many episodes ago? 20 episodes ago, I did maybe it was the last lightning topic. No, it was episode 271. Literally 10 episodes ago, how not to monetize an app. We talked about how to sort of productize and feature big major releases and updates in your app. And for my Cadence, my bicycle Bluetooth application, I added a big, huge update to it, which was like history and starting and stop rides and a bunch of other customizations. It was a big deal. I mean, I put a whole database in my app and I wanted to celebrate that. So I released the app update. I originally didn't do any work and I didn't really see any difference in sales at all. So I made this little screen that pops up. I basically copied Apple that pops up when there's an update. Nobody reads it, just hits continue. But I was like, no, continue or buy the upgrade now to talk about these new features. And Frank, it's been out for a month and I got sales updates for you.
Okay. I feel like we did a whole series, but no, that was more on the Island Tracker account system. But this feels like it's along those lines. I'm excited for this update. I do have to say, I had to push you a little bit to get the upgrade to Pro Plus Deluxe version. So I'm really excited to hear how that button has performed. So are you a billionaire, James? Let's start there.
Well, one, I'm not a billionaire because, the sales aren't like the most spectacular thing in the world. However, there's definitely taco money if you want to put it that way. I could eat a little bit off of the money, but it's not a lot. So and when the app first came out, Pro did pretty well. So on iOS, for example, I was around 20 to 30 upgrades, like one a day, basically. I was getting, but then in the summer months, now it was a summer months, really dropped down. So like August and September were 16 and 7. And at the end of September, that's when I put in the pop-up. So October jumped the sales back up to 20. So it actually from 7 to 20. And this month already, we are at 12 and we still have half to go. So I will say there's a boost there. Over on Android, this was the biggest month. October was the biggest month that I've ever had. Normally I was ranging around like $40 a month. It dropped down to 20. So like the curves match on iOS and Android, by the way. So they kind of curve down, bop, bop, bop. And then it went from about $35 to $40 up to $60. So that's a 50% increase in sales between the two of them, I would say. So, and on iOS specifically, it jumped nearly double month over month, which is a pretty big deal, I would say. Now, I can't contribute it to the button, but I think a little bit has to do with the button.
I'm going to take full credit for your double sales. Yeah, that's what's going to happen here. It's okay. So super promising. I'm always hesitant because 1 month is hard to judge for me. Like my apps are definitely seasonal. I do so much better in the fall and the winter than I do in the summer. And so there are just upticks like that happen naturally. But a 2x update, or whatever you want to call that, increase, that's substantial. We can't do the stats on it until we have multiple months, but I'm liking it. And if nothing else, I do wish you had analytics on that button though, because I would like to know how many people are hitting it from the what's new screen. We both concluded that as good app developers, we have to be putting what's new screens into our apps. They are slightly annoying, but how else can you expose these features that you spend so much time on? Especially, you were saying like you're not calling these app sales, you're calling them in-app things, but I mean that's what app sales are these days. So
Yeah.
let's roll with it. I'm proud of you. Good job.
Yeah. And the reason I can't track them, in case anyone is curious, is because this app, I made a firm stance that it was going to require zero permissions and I was going to
Hmm.
have zero checkboxes everywhere. And specifically, people were one or two people on the review cited that they were excited that that finally a developer like stuck to the word of like not actually putting anything in the app. So it requires zero permission, does not even require internet permission at all to work. So I did that, and I made
Don't you
my
need
promise.
Bluetooth? You gotta have the Bluetooth.
I do have Bluetooth permission, but
Yeah,
that's not one of the ones on iOS where
right.
you gotta put in the things that you're using and ad tracking and all that stuff. So I thought about putting in App Center Analytics or something else, but then I got
Yeah.
internet, all this other stuff. I probably should have, but I didn't. So I don't know.
No, it's great, it's great. Cool. So what are your plans? I hate to push you in the future because this was a big update and everything. Just gonna let it ride so we can collect some statistics and all that
Hmm.
stuff? Or do you already have, like, the next, Pro plus plus feature planned out?
I do not. The one thing I really want to do is the latest version of Android finally got rid of the need to declare location for getting access to Bluetooth. So
Oh,
I would like to fix that up in a new release just for the new versions of Android because it's super annoying, and that would be it. So no holiday hacks for this application. I really feel like it's really almost feature complete at this point. I'm feeling pretty good about it.
you just had to say holiday hacks. I totally forgot about holiday hacks. Oh, no. Now I have to come up with some holiday hacks. We've still got a month left before we do that episode, everyone, so
Yeah.
we'll get there. Uh, all right. Awesome. I don't know what else to ask about it because sales, I'm not a good salesperson. So I'm just trying to live through you and find out what works and what doesn't. So
We're at
that's good.
time. We're at time anyways. So on to the next topic, Frank.
All right, this is a fun one because it's a programming language. One favorite C Sharp 10 features. This is easy because C Sharp just keeps getting better. I think people keep giving it the flack for, oh no, there's multiple ways to do one thing. Well, we're going to talk later in this episode. I've been dealing a lot with C++ lately. It's terrible. It's the worst programming language ever developed. And so going back to C Sharp and seeing the beautiful features added to C Sharp just makes me happy. I love seeing the language get better. It's why I got into .NET. Enough C Sharp love. James, do you have any C Sharp 10 features that you like?
Mainly, it boils down to two, and one of the twos are actually two features in one, so kind of three features. And Mads and Dustin describe this as shrinking your code vertically and horizontally. So the first one we'll talk about is horizontally and reclaiming, Frank, those precious four spaces or one tab, if you will, in our source code. We all know it. Every single app basically has that indentation for no good reason. And that reason is because of namespaces. And now we have file scoped namespaces. They're the best. You can just get rid of those curly braces and indent everything over and just put a semicolon behind your namespace and you are good to go. Frank, file, scoped, namespaces, they're the thing of the future.
I'll give it to you. All right, that's a pretty good one. I like that. It's gonna make all my old code feel old. I'm nervous about that. This happens with C Sharp sometimes. Something big happens, and then the old code looks old.
Yes.
For me, it was the arrow operator on properties and methods and things like that.
Mm.
Code that doesn't use those just looks so old, and I got a feeling the same thing's going to apply to namespace block colon.
Oh, yeah.
I'm gonna expect that colon everywhere. Then I hear someone did like a major refactoring of their code base to do this and did like a change on 5,000 files because they just blanket said, I just prefer it, therefore I'm writing a script, and just did their whole code base.
Someone did it to ASP.NET Core. They sent a
That's it.
PR to ASP.NET Core, and they did all of it, which was fantastic. If you're gonna go all in, go all
Insane.
in. Yeah, do it.
It's absolutely insane.
Yeah. Uh,
Uh, the one trick is I've noticed on the Mac, you need, VS2022 to get your C#10 support. That's a blanket statement for all this, but definitely the file scope namespace stuff.
Yes.
Go
And
get
and
it.
and you can upgrade your older applications, right? You can do Lang version as long as you're compiling against the, in Visual Studio 2022 or whatever the things are there. It's a compiler feature. So it's just, it's not a, you don't you can put it in an old Xamarin app for all I care. You can put it anywhere. I just updated MVVM helpers, which is .NET standard, 1.0 and 2.0, and that already had a
Mhm.
Langver of 8, so I upgraded it to 10. But that's in there. Another one, Frank, global and implicit usings. This is going to shrink down vertically the top space. We're shifting over, now we're shifting up. So I want my applications, I want my namespaces to be online one, which means I want all my usings to be in a file called global usings. And for all the system ones, I'm going to turn on implicit usings, which are different per project type. But basically, those will bring in all the system shenanigans that are there. And I'm just going to use global usings as much as I can everywhere. If I have to put a using statement in more than one or two files, I'm going to put it in a global using. And that basically says, hey, just use all these usings on every file in this entire project and go away, and never type a using statement ever again. And I love it.
Well,
So good.
there goes software layering. We can no longer have distinct stacks that only know how to talk to each other through very specific interfaces. Fine.
Yep.
It is funny because if you install .NET 6 and .NET New, a console app, the the hello world is like console right line hello world. There's no usings at the top. There's no indentation. It's
Yep.
very awkward.
No, it's
And I'm
awesome.
like, I know. Okay, awkward for an old timer like me.
Do file new blank ASP.NET Core app, and it's
Scary.
3 lines of code or 4 lines of code, and it gives you a web API because it uses minimal API, and there's no namespaces, and it also uses the C#9 feature of the whatever run the main program thing or whatever. It's amazing. It's like, I don't know. I love it. I don't know. I think that these features like alone, and being file new, you get nullable, and you get implicit usings on by default. That is going to change the game, Frank, because just imagine you're a brand new developer. Like, there's not all this junk around. You're like learning stuff for the
Mhm.
first time. I think it's going to make the code real nice.
Yeah, for sure. Those project files can get really out of hand. And then, I mean, project files totally separate from the language, but just from that new user perspective, keeping the project file small, keeping the initial code file small, definitely
Yeah.
good. And I was playing with it. I actually haven't had any problems. Everyone always worries about name collisions. It's what we're all worried
Mm.
about. I actually did run into one. There's a type called index. No one, no, don't call a type index, anyone. It's a terrible name for a type. But it turns out there's a system.index and the library I was using had an index.
Oh
So I
no.
was just like, I know, like here's a type I've never even heard of, and already its name is colliding. But that's no big deal. At the top of the file, you can actually use a using and say using index equals system.index or whichever one you
Mm.
want. So I find that works really well. And I think you can even put that in the global usings. I think you can do global aliases.
Yes.
Uh, it's
Yes.
a brave new world. Sure.
Global aliases and global static usings too.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Crazy,
Yeah.
crazy.
You're welcome.
There goes console. I have bye-bye console. I have a C#10 feature that is impossible to explain. So can I
Okay.
just give it a shot?
Sure.
Um, have you ever tried to assign a lambda to a var variable where you say
Yes.
like yes.
It's a great feature.
So
It's a great feature. I already know what you're talking
this
about.
is the greatest feature, everyone, because it's just natural. Okay, so let me explain. The var means we don't have to type the type for the variable that we're
Mm.
creating. We type var. And then it implies from the right-hand side what that type should be. Fine, works for everything except lambdas. And it was always frustrating because like you always felt like they had enough information there. Like, come on, C sharp, figure it out. But they wouldn't let you do var blah 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 equals a lambda. And by lambda I mean the thing with the pointy arrow thing. But you can now in C#10. It's a proper functional programming language where it can do all the implicit conversion. The reason they didn't do it before is lambdas were actually way more flexible than delegates. Delegates are our function calling type in
Mm.
.NET, but lambdas are actually more generic than that. They can adapt to different delegates. And so they always resisted picking a very specific type of delegate to assign it to. But we all know there's action out there. There's action of T, there's funk of T, funk of T1, funk of
Hmm.
T2, all the funks are out there. There's predicate. I don't know if they ever implied to predicate. I have to check that one, but that was like your funk if you're returning a bool or
Mm.
something. Well, now var can do that. It does all that for you. You just put the var there and you let the compiler figure it out because it's just better that way anyway. But then that was good enough. All right. That totally, I'm happy. But here's something they just had to show off a little and do something even better. You can type that yourself. Instead of saying var, you could actually say expression or lambda
Mm.
expression. And
Hmm.
now we're meta programming people. And now you're getting an expression tree for whatever the junk is you put on the right hand side there. And let me tell you, you can put a lot of interesting junk on the right hand side
It's true.
there. And so it's such a small feature, but at the same time, it really makes the language a lot more powerful and a lot more functional, a lot more happy to weird functional people like me that just want to make lambdas everywhere. So
Yeah.
super digging it, super happy.
Yeah, they use this for minimal APIs. Is what really powers that, because a minimal API like map get, map post takes in a delegate or a lambda delegate, I believe. And the other cool part too is, you know, the other thing is you could have your lambda return an object, right? Like maybe it returns a string or an int.
Hmm.
And in that case, if you put a var, it can't figure it out because it's like, oh, I don't know what you're going to return. But what you can do is you can put the keyword object before the lambda and it'll then figure it out. It's like, oh, cool, I got it. It's like the weirdest thing ever, but it's amazing. So it's really
Yeah.
cool.
And lambdas, you usually don't put the types of the parameters. It usually figures all that stuff out. But in
Hmm.
these cases, I I think they're almost required if you're going to use the var keyword.
I
But
think so.
it really should not be a problem at all. It's still better than typing out funk whatever on that left
Yeah.
hand side.
So
So
good.
it is.
So good.
Well, the last one, I just want to say they really improved the interpolated string handler. It
Mm.
sounds so basic, and it is basic. It's pretty fundamental to the language, but they did two things that are really important to me. They created a new string.create. I guess that's more of a library thing, but C# works really well with it, where you can specify the culture. It's
Mm.
really, really important because .NET by default, when it converts things to strings, it uses the current user interface culture, which weird, like what does that even mean? Um, the default is things turn into strings that are human readable. They're supposed to be human readable. Problem is, we all like to make things machine readable, and for
Hmm.
that, you want to use the invariant culture usually. It's just the simplest way to make sure things can be read everywhere. You just use the invariant culture. Unfortunately, there wasn't a great way to do that with interpolated strings. Now there is. String.create, pass in the culture, and then throw in your interpolated string there, and it will use that culture for all of its formatting. It's really important in serialization, so I'm just happy to see that.
Do you know another thing that they fixed or improved in .NET 6 and C#10 with string
Ooh.
interpolation?
Oh, I can name a few more.
Let me just
Which
tell
one are
you.
you going to do?
Let me just tell you. It's
Okay.
with string builders. Okay, so imagine you were using an interpolated string inside of a string builder. Interpolated strings
Oh,
under the hood use string builders, like in the compiled
sure.
code. So the
Why
problem
not?
is it would actually allocate a new string builder. So there'd be
Yeah.
two string builders. So they fixed it, and now it only allocates one string builder. It's magical. Anyways, so fun fact.
Yeah, yeah. Overall, they made it so like anyone can consume these interpolated strings as kind of like expressions, and so you can do your own meta programming on top of that to do basically whatever you want. And I think that's the trick they're using there for the string builder to make it more efficient. You can
Hmm.
say this very specific type that your function takes. I can't remember the name of it, but I've seen people do amazing things with it. They've done like console input using a formatted string that creates like holes. And so people can just fill in the holes like a Mad Libs style,
Hmm.
all from just using interpolated strings. It's fun to see the language become powerful like that.
I agree.
I didn't explain it well, but it's a really weird hack. And it's really cool. It's
Yeah.
cool when you can do a weird hack like that. That means your
Yeah.
language is powerful.
I agree. All right, we got two, even though we're way over time on it, but let's talk about the first one and then we'll go into the second one because they're the same, but different, but kind of the same. Um, with .NET 6 came .NET MAUI Preview 10, and in that, Also came .NET MAUI Blazor integration with the Blazor web view. Now, what this enables you to do is put some Blazor into a .NET MAUI app, like any kind of anywhere. It could be a whole page, it could be a box, it could be a string. We talked about this before. Or you can make your entire Blazor app and shove it into a .NET MAUI app. So you can think of .NET MAUI as the shell, but you still get access to all the native APIs, .NET MAUI Essentials. You can kind of break out of the box if you need to. But it also means that sort of some of the web browser stuff just kind of works. So if you just put like an input and say, take a photo, like it's a web browser. So it does the thing where it just takes a photo if you want to. Or you could use native integrations too, which is cool. So Maddie and I did a session at this on VS Live, and Alon did one at .NET Conf on it. And you can think of this as like the third Blazor, right? Because there's Blazor server, Blazor WebAssembly, and this sort of sits in the middle because you get all the power of Blazor server without the need for the server, and you get also all the power of Blazor WebAssembly without the need for WebAssembly because .NET is already running inside of a .NET MAUI application, which means that you don't need a server, you don't need WebAssembly, but it works offline and you get all of .NET available to you. So it's really cool, and I'm all in. I think that this might be the future, Frank. It might be the future. I mean, because
Can I pitch you a better name? Because I got this. It's Blazor app, you know, Blazor server.
Blazor native, Blazor
No,
hybrid,
Blazor app.
Blazor app.
It's a Blazor app. I wrote a Blazor app.
I was thinking about this today, and I was I was sitting around drinking a cup of coffee,
Okay.
and I was thinking about this because I was like, man, I'm not a Blazor developer, I'm not a web developer, but like, man, there's a lot of web developers out there, and this could really help them bridge the gap to desktop and mobile in the .NET world. And of course, there's a bunch of other great projects out there, so you can do stuff like this. But I was like, man, like Blazor's so cool, and I love Blazor. And I saw the stuff that you were doing with Blazor. I was like, man, now Frank could just take that app and shove it in a Maui app, and then boom, he's got a web app and he's got a mobile app, all this stuff. And we showed at the .NET Conf keynote the Signal R integration, all this stuff. You got to write that code once. Anyways, it's amazing. So what if when you created a Blazor app, Frank, it said, web, progressive web app, desktop, mobile, and it just checked up, right? And it just created all the projects and did all the things for you, and it's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna try. I keep mentioning it. I wrote this cute little game, a 5,000-year-old game in Blazor, and I really like it. And I'm totally gonna shove that into an app and into a .NET 6 app once it's all released. I think. I'm gonna wait that long. I might try sooner, but
do it.
just do it. Just do it. Throw that puppy in an app because I like the Blazor programming model. It's a very functional, declarative style of programming that mixes well with other styles of programming. You're not forced into MVVM, you're not forced into MVC, you're not forced into really anything. It feels a lot more, sorry, everyone, I keep calling it PHP, but it feels like PHP to me, and I love it for that reason. So I'm totally there for that. And I think it's a small enough app, it'll be a nice little example for me to try it all out because I haven't tried building a very large app in it, though I totally think it'll be just fine. But I'm excited to take my simple 2 or 3 page app and turn it into one of these puppies.
Yeah, I agree. Now, I will say this is that with this .NET MAUI Blazor hybrid thing, because also there's like this Blazor integration for WinForms and WPF2. You can do the same thing there. This was actually a feature of another project that we'll talk about in a second after our amazing break. Thanks to our sponsor, Syncfusion. That's right, Syncfusion is back giving you all the controls for all the things that you need, including Blazor and .NET MAUI and Xamarin Forms and all the things out there, which means you can use all that stuff together. Like you take that Syncfusion stuff, build your Blazor app with it, and then you can put it in a mobile application and a desktop application, Frank, because it works everywhere. It's amazing. I love Syncfusion because now all of their controls are going to work everywhere with all this cool technology. No matter what you need, they got bajillions controls. They got processors for PDFs and Word docs and Excel. They got all this amazing stuff. So many amazing controls. All you got to do is go to syncfusion.com/merge conflict to learn more. That is syncfusion.com/merge conflict. There's a link down in the show notes below. Go check them out. Thanks to our friends over at Syncfusion for sponsoring this week's pod.
I love those Syncfusion ads. Thank you, Syncfusion.
Yeah.
Oh, right. Well, okay. I'm really going to confuse things if I move on to the next topic. You really want to go here? We're going to try this?
Yeah.
Okay. Imagine everyone. You're writing your mobile app, you're using your XAML, life is good. But you've also done the Blazor thing where you've learned how to do like these little at signs that inject expressions into your HTML. It's more like a template thing. And then you use a little code section at the bottom of your Blazor. And you're writing this Blazor code and you're really enjoying the architecture, how the whole thing works. It's really fascinating. But maybe, like James, you don't exactly love HTML. Maybe you're more of a XAML person. So what if, James? What if you could take the Blazor architecture, the Blazor style of programming, but apply that to XAML
Hmm.
instead of HTML?
Yeah.
And that's what this is. This is called the mobile Blazor bindings. And they are what I think of as very, very exciting in the mobile world. They are an experimental technology. Maui's not released, and these certainly are not fully released either. But the idea of using the Blazor programming model in an appy app
Hmm.
really entices me. What do you think?
Yeah. No, I agree with you. I believe I am an MVVM developer, but I believe that MVVM, is nice and it abstracts your code into different things. But I really enjoy the ability to write Blazor code, inject state, write the code at the bottom or in the code behind it, whatever you want to do, right? And just it's a better way of doing data binding, I think, for most things. Well, what I think would be nice, and I do believe that the mobile Blazor bindings does both things. It does the thing that you just said, but it also has the Blazor web view. So there was like that
Yeah,
part of that experiment has grown up out of the experiment in .NET MAUI, right? Which means that you can now take basically Blazor stuff and HTML stuff and put it in a .NET MAUI app. But this other part, which you're talking about, hasn't. I think it should, because then you could pick and choose and say you have a label and a button. You can pick if you want to use bindings. That works great. Or use the Blazor stuff. Or guess what? You're like, I hate XAML and I just want to use HTML. Just use your Blazor stuff. It would be like the most flexible,
uh-huh,
programming stuff. I love it, Frank. I agree with you. I totally forgot about the mobile Blazor bindings because to me, that could just be like a feature of .NET MAUI, right? That it supports the Razor binding syntax.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And it's really just a pre-compilation step.
Hmm.
You're just taking this template language and turning it into code. It's not magic.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sorry. There are fine details. Blazor is a little bit of magic. It's got some great state restoration and things like that. But you nailed it there. Like having the same data model and then being able to choose which UI layer you kind of want to use in that part of the app. Like if it's a webby thing, use HTML, have fun, use the Blazor style for that. And if it's a more appy thing, you want to use native controls, you want it to feel like native controls, then you could use the MAUI controls for that,
Hmm.
not HTML. I think it would be genius to have both of those together. Problem is, obviously, that's two APIs they have to support. My only hope is that Blazor/Razor. A lot of this is built on the Razor engine and how it's able to do a lot of this stuff. It just depends on how generic that code is and how well they could make that work for XAML versus HTML. But I would love to see us have both options because I like HTML. HTML's fine,
Hmm.
but what I really love is the Blazor style of programming. I think that's a good way to write user interfaces, and I would love to be able to apply that to native UIs.
Yeah, I agree. The more I look at the samples, I'm like, I'm gonna go speak with Alon next week. That's for sure. I don't know. It's like I'm a manager now. I don't know what's up. All I know is that these things are over there. The project's still going. They updated it last month, so it's definitely there, and people I think are pretty much using it, which is pretty cool. And I
Yeah,
think the thing with the Blazor mobile bindings that was a little bit complicated was that for every control, even custom controls, you needed like a mobile Blazor binding version of it.
yeah.
I think that's the thing that was always an issue. Is like then you need like a whole nother ecosystem, and that's too much. So like figuring out how to magically mash those two things together, I think would be pretty cool. Like I wonder if there's
Well,
a world where you could not use the like at usings and at inject at top and still have like the code and the binding stuff, and that would work. That would be kind of nice.
that at inject and things, those are just IOC container
Yeah, yeah.
stuff like that. That's not necessary. It's all doable.
It's all doable.
um, I mean, because it's the same problem that like Fabulous has,
Mhm.
Comet has. You're repeating the basic controls. Um, you need your mobile Blazor version, you need your Comet version, honestly, you need your XAML version, you need your, which one did I leave off? Your Fabulous version.
Mhm.
So we have these 4 or 5 different versions of Button already. They're all eventually going down to iButton or iButton View to be actually rendered out by the Maui engine. But I don't feel so bad about having multiple front ends to the same backend renderer. That's kind of a part of the design of Maui.
Mm.
I don't know how important it is to their design these days, but I remember in the early days, it was definitely a part of the design. They wanted to support multiple front ends
You know,
to it.
I wonder if you're right. I wonder if that's why in the current Xamarin Forms, like the handlers are so more complicated. They had to do a bunch of work. I wonder now if they're like lightweight shims, basically with a new handler model instead of the
Yeah.
custom renderer model. I wonder if it's a whole bunch easier. I know there is a pull request. I'm looking at it here on the mobile to use .NET MAUI. So there is actually one that someone started a pull request. 780 file changes. So
Oh boy.
who
Oh
knows?
boy.
But that'd be kind of cool if so. That'd be
Yeah.
cool. Yeah,
Yeah. Just a project that definitely deserves some attention.
yeah.
And I wish more people were talking about it, honestly.
All right, Frank. Let's talk about C++. plus plus.
Let's do it. Let's do it. Okay. Look, originally, when I was thinking of this topic, I was like, I just want to complain for 5 minutes, but I'm going to try to pitch this into a positive way. But, James, in a nutshell, I've been working a lot with C lately. I think we did a whole episode where I wrote a C compiler to help out in iCircuit because iCircuit lets you program Arduinos. Arduinos are programmed in C. It's not true. Arduinos are actually programmed in C++. And I've been forcing myself to add C++ features to it. I'm getting tired of writing a C++ compiler. So, James, I tried to compile Clang, the LLVM C++ compiler. It's a giant C++ code base. And I wanted to give a little state of report on how easy it is to build multi-platform libraries and bindings. You ready for this? What do you think? How easy do you think it's gotten to do bindings to C++ libraries?
Terrible.
I know, it's the worst. Look, I can't, it's not even the bindings. I can't even get this thing to compile, right? So I want to first say that Clang uses CMake, which is a very popular make system these days. But as an old cranky person, I have to say I have not seen any real improvements over the old-fashioned make systems. I'm seeing all the same old errors I used to ever get. But I did want to give one shout out, one positive note to CMake, where they've made cross compiling a wee bit easier than it used to be, especially for us iOS developers, because it's tough now. You got to build simulator versions for ARM64 and x86. You got to build iOS versions for ARM7, ARM64, thankfully no x86. And then you got to build Mac Catalyst versions for x86 and ARM. And it's just becoming so much work to do all that stuff. And although Clang has really improved its support, it's still just a giant bear to do cross compilation on
Mm.
iOS. Will any of this ever get better, James? That's my question to you.
Oh, I don't know. Probably not ever.
No.
Maybe. I don't know. Well, I don't know. There are a crazy amount of C++ plus plus developers, right, in the world, and it's a very popular language. So, and I have to imagine that it would get better to some. Didn't because when you do C++ plus plus and like Visual Studio, is that Clang or is that CMake or this Clang, right?
No, in Visual Studio, Microsoft has their own compiler. It's
Does
a
it?
very oh yeah. Visual there are like 3 implementations of C++ out there, people, because it's that hard of a language to implement. There is Microsoft's Visual Studio compiler called CL. There is the GNU compiler, GCC, and then there is Clang, which is the LLVM new front end
Hmm.
for C++.
Well, with 2022, it at least says that you can use, it says use MS Build with Microsoft Visual C++ compiler or a third
Ooh,
party tool set like CMake with Clang or Ming W,
yeah. Yeah.
um, or more to debug, right? I don't know.
Yeah, well, that's the build system.
Oh,
So the
okay.
build system is configurable, but honestly, if you have Visual Studio, you wanna be using Microsoft's compiler. It's pretty
Hmm.
good. Clang is wonderful, LLVM's wonderful, but its biggest thing is that it's open source, and so you can get the
Hmm.
source code to it. So ostensibly, I could compile it and then put it into every version of iCircuit, and it would be sitting there. But it's 2022, and these native libraries still aren't compiled for iOS. No one bothers. There's one Mac build, but it's x64. It's not even, you don't get an ARM64 build or anything like that. So it's still definitely stuck in the 1990s world where everyone's
Hmm.
expected to download it and devote half of your life to learning the 8,000 makefile settings and all that to getting things compiled. So the C++ world as a full sit rep is it's terrible. It's always been terrible, and no one in that community ever seems to want to make it better.
Hmm.
And rant, hopefully. Thank you. It's been it's been therapeutic. Thank you.
Yeah, and if you are a diehard C++ dev, let Frank know how he can improve his life.
And let me say, actually, I started programming in C++, so a lot of what I'm saying is tongue in cheek. I do, at one point in my life, I did love the language, but it's just an absolute tragedy these days.
I
Move.
totally started in C++. That was my jam, to be honest with
Yeah.
you. I wrote Dungeon Quest, a text-based adventure with a visual ASCII map. Thank you very much. That's
Nice.
pretty rad. Then I found that code recently. I totally opened it up in Visual Studio and it ran just fine, which is
Could you
ridiculous.
save your games? Did it ever sig fault?
Yep. No, no, it saved like to disk, I think.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I wish I could play my old games. I found a whole box of old floppy disks. I don't think I could ever A,
I
read them, B, compile them.
I have a bag of floppy disks, and I remember that before I left college, I put all my floppy disks into the machine because I was like, I bet I'm never gonna have. Or I bought like a floppy disk reader to USB, and sure enough, I backed up everything onto my Dropbox at the time, or whatever it was, or Google
Yeah.
Drive at the time, and it's just like a 3 megabyte zip file with like all my code on it. But you know what I mean? So it's there. But I do still have the floppies. I didn't. What's floppy's shelf life?
That's I'm half afraid to buy the drive only to find out none of the floppies actually read because I
Yeah,
think I was told back in the day like 10 to 20 years and it's been over 10 to 20 years for most of these for me.
yeah.
Magnetic media sitting in a box pressed against a bunch of other magnetic media. I don't have the highest hopes.
Let's talk about Twitter, Frank.
Oh, all right. We're going from one classic 90s invention to a classic 20 aughts
Yeah.
invention.
Uh,
Okay, what is Twitter doing now? What did they do, James?
well, Twitter has been putting out stuff, and they're finally available here in Americas. There's three new things. One's been out for a while. The newsletter integration, because they bought Review, which is the newsletter software I use, surprisingly, and it went
Oh,
to from being paid to being free, which is really nice. If you need a free newsletter, it's built right in, and there's a newsletter section. And if you go to my profile, Frank, I'll show you a few new things. There's a newsletter there, and you can subscribe with one click. And then when I tweet about a newsletter and you click on it, it will also recommend that you subscribe through Twitter magically, which is kind of cool. So it's kind of nice.
I gotta say, this is the most Silicon Valley thing I've ever heard in my life. I'm not seeing the link, unfortunately, to subscribe to your newsletter.
There's a big button that says subscribe.
Fascinating. I don't get it. You must have to be logged into Twitter.
Oh, yeah, probably. Yes.
Okay. All right. Newsletters. I still get your newsletter, but you're the only newsletter I get, and it's right. There is a giant newsletter. I can start reading it right now,
Yes.
and you have a lot of subscribers. Congratulations.
Thanks. They're mostly
Uh,
not from this Twitter subscribe button. They're mostly been there for a while ago. But that's not the exciting feature, Frank. That's a boring
okay,
feature.
good.
Two new
Okay.
ones, Twitter for professionals and Twitter Blue. Okay, let's break down Twitter for professionals. Because see on my profile, see how it says science and technology?
Oh, that's a very Twitch of you. Yeah, I gotcha. You have a little suitcase next to you, so you must be a traveling science and technologist.
I do. I picked a category. There you can pick a category, and there's categories like, are you a marine? Are you in education and restaurant? Are you in real estate or stuff? I think it's mostly there's two options. Like you can pick between a business or a personal account. So like, are you a person that like tweets about this thing? XYZ. And I'm sure they're going to do something with it. Like it just shows up and you can hide it if you want, but I'm going to leave it there in case you're interested. Oh, what does this person do? So there's a bunch of categories, like 80 categories there. But the cool part is that once you enable that thing in your profile, you can also like, pick topics to follow, but you can also easily promote tweets. So actually, funnily enough, I'm logged in and underneath every single one of my tweets, there's a promote button, which allows
Oh,
me to pay money to promote that. So it's kind of like, do you want to, but kind of not an influencer, but a creator in a creator space, it gives you kind of like a notch. Like I'm still not a blue check mark, right? I'm not a
mhm,
blue, there is a Twitter blue now, but I'm not a Twitter blue check mark. I'm not verified. Nor do I ever want to be verified. I'm against it. I think that
interesting.
verification not needed for me. I don't
Mm.
need it. I'm not that cocky,
Well,
Frank.
this definitely sounds like more of a corporate thing. Like this is what I
Yes.
should be doing for all my apps. So all my app Twitter accounts should
Yes.
have this, and they should be in the right category, especially because
Hmm.
that's where you do your promoted tweets from. Except that's not totally true. I almost prefer to use their little tweet generator and their little advertising area on the Twitter.
Yes. So for
Um,
example, for merge conflict, I have now chosen podcast.
interesting,
Yes.
interesting.
Now, would we be a business or a creator? A business best fits brands,
Hmm.
retail shops, service providers, organizations, and a creator is best for public figures, artists, and influencers. I think business, right?
I thought we were artistic influencers, man.
All right, I'll do
What's
that. I'll do that.
Come on, man.
Yeah, so there we go. Now we are now on merge conflict. It says podcast. See, that's cool. You're right. There's application as well. So boom. So that's
Yeah.
cool. I like it. Right? It's like this is a person. This is a thing. I don't know. That's nice. It's a nice little thing.
It's funny because, like, you go to people's profiles, and I never know what I'm actually looking to see when I read someone's profile because they're
Mm,
usually trying to make a joke or do something like, yours is, "You can see the pain in my laugh." It's
yeah.
funny because it mentions comedy, but, like, it doesn't really tell me anything about you, so at least there's a small hint here. "Oh, and he likes suitcases and science and technology." Great.
Yes. I used to right before that, I was listening to some Juice World songs. So that there was a line from one of his songs recently. Although Juice World's passed away, so it was from a verse previously. Um, that came out now. But I used to have like a bunch of like links and then my live love laugh and code. But then I was like, I don't like you just there's like a link already there from my website, so it's good enough. So I agree with you. I don't know what's supposed to be there. What's on Frank's? I don't follow you, so
Oh, please don't read that one out loud. I was already just embarrassing you,
Frank
so
Kruger, app developer. So you did the yeah, this is good. Yeah, this is great. Absolutely, you should use emojis though. iCircuit 3D,
ugh.
iCircuit app, continuous codes, Calca app stat dev, podcaster, merge conflict out of FM. Wow, 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 that's us.
I'm actually running out of room. I got to stop writing apps. I don't
Yes.
have any more room to add links to there.
I needed to stop going to new like social things. Like I had on there like our podcast, YouTube, Twitch, all
Yeah.
these things, and it was like too much.
Yeah.
All right, last thing, Frank. Here we go. Ready? Twitter Blue. This is the big one. You
I
can pay
think
money. You can pay money to Twitter.
so. Please tell me this is what I want. What I want, James, because especially Twitter lately has been every other tweet is a paid promotion. I do love paid promotions, I should
Mhm.
say that, but I don't want to see any more of them ever again. And I'm also a weirdo that I don't run an ad blocker. I guess like
Mhm. I do not
normal
either.
humans run ad blockers. I don't know why I don't. Part of me likes the pain of the internet to come through. I want to feel it in its raw, terrible form. But that also means I see a lot of Twitter ads. So is there a legit way I can get rid of the Twitter ads? Please tell me that's what this Twitter Blue thing is.
For $2.99 a month, Frank, one coffee a month, you can do the following. You can undo a tweet, Frank. You can undo it.
Oh, well, oh, okay. So that's unsend, I guess.
That is
Why
unsent.
do
So
they call it undo? That's a weird
because
one.
what they do is they do the little countdown timer. Gmail has this feature too, where it has a countdown
Right.
timer. So it's delaying the post basically, but that's in there. But here it is: three news feed features. Number one, ad free articles. It says enjoy an ad free reading experience across a network of US based popular publishers, not including paywall access. Actually, I don't know what that is. Ad free articles? That seems like
I
not
think
what it is, what you
nope,
want.
nope. They're not giving me what I want.
Ad
Everyone's
free
doing news
articles.
articles. Everyone's trying to syndicate news
What is
companies these
what is
days.
that? What?
That
Oh,
almost Yeah, I think it's syndication, right?
That's like, oh, there's a Wall Street Journal article, and then I click on it.
Mm. Well, you don't click on Wall Street Journal articles. It's a paywall.
But then
You
this one
don't click
says,
on New York
oh,
Times. You don't click on Seattle.
wait, so okay, so this is Como News, I
Yeah,
guess.
yeah.
Como News is Seattle local news.
It's not worth it, people. I'm out.
Okay.
Do
Uh,
any other features?
okay, top articles easily see the most shared articles in the network over the last 24 hours. Reader, turn long threads into more beautiful reading experiences. I don't know what that means. That sounds cool.
Okay.
Okay, we got customize your experience, bookmark folders, organize your bookmarks into folders and avoid endless scrolling. I don't know about
They're not
that.
taking away ads. Nope. These are all Pro Plus Deluxe features, as
Yeah,
far as I can tell.
custom navigation, you can set your most used pages right on your tab bar. That's an iOS feature. App theme, you can choose a new theme on iOS. App icons, you can use different app icons. Pinned conversations, swipe to pin your favorite conversation to the top of your direct message inbox. These just seem like features
They
should be in
are
there.
itemized. Yeah, they are just making you pay for features. This is
That's
genius. This
features.
this goes right with our opening topic.
Hmm.
So they are really just doing the Pro Plus Deluxe version of Twitter.
Yeah.
Fascinating, because there are other Twitter clients out there that just do a lot of this.
Yeah.
TweetDeck was famous for doing all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Remember back in the early mobile days when we all wrote Twitter clients?
Oh
Wasn't that
yeah.
fun?
Oh yeah.
Did you
That's
ever
my
write
jam.
one?
Oh yeah. That was literally like one of my original demos for forever.
Good.
Yeah, and there
Yeah.
was a link to tweet or whatever, tweet to link, which enabled you to just use link query based Twitter aggregation, so you could just like
Oh,
make stuff. It was really cool. Yeah,
love it. Love it. I think every UI app developer has to write a weather app, a Twitter app, maybe an email
RSS.
app. Yeah, exactly. Some kind of podcast or RSS. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Well,
standard.
that's what we always did with the Twitter. We just did the RSS feeds.
Yeah,
Because that was an LCARS reader even.
there you go. Yeah, there you go.
It had these features.
Yeah, these features. All right, Frank, we did it. All the topics totally went over time, but it was amazing. We love every single one of you. Thank you for listening to this podcast. You can, of course, go to mergeconflict.fm. You can join our Patreons, which you get exclusive podcasts ahead of time and bonus episodes. You can join our Discord. You can tweet at us now. You can tell that we're a podcast that says podcast on our profile. And you can also email us. There's a contact button, and we read those. And maybe next, in 9 episodes from now, 290, we will read your recommendation for a topic, or we'll just do a whole podcast on it. Let us know. Write in mergeconflict.fm. But that's going to do it for this week's podcast. So until next time, I'm Jason Magno.
And I'm Frank Kruger. Thanks for listening.
Peace.